I'm saying that you can't accuse me of just kind of looking at things at face value when that's actually what you're doing. You're gauging from your own experience and the fact that you talk to some people here and there and then saying, well, that's just how it is. That's not just how it is.
So from your Googling, you have a better understanding of what the military is than people who actually have been
I don't have a better understanding of what it's like to be in the military, but I absolutely have a better understanding in regards to the fact that diversity benefits the military. Yes.
Okay.
No. I know you got to get back to your script. I understand that you have to get back to your script, okay? But hold on. We're actually talking now.
Nobody watching this actually thinks that your brain's operating at a higher level. I mean, I'm thinking faster.
I haven't been able to say a word, my dude. You've literally been just talking nonstop. And the non-biased mod isn't even helping at all. So this is
I'm sorry, Hunter. I thought when I spoke earlier, I was being too biased. Okay, John, let's give Hunter a few minutes to talk. Welcome back to Andrew Says. Diversity is our strength. It's something we hear a lot in this country, especially from our Prime Minister. He says it all the time. And you've probably seen diversity, equity, and inclusion policies on job listings at least a few times in the past few years. Now, diversity is so important, in fact, that the government recognizes gender or sexuality as some sort of accomplishment. It's why you see Kamala Harris celebrated as both the first black and the first Indian vice president at the same time in different articles. It's so important that it should be injected into the military as well for some reason. You've seen top U.S. military officials talk about white rage. You've seen U.S. Army commercials. They're a joke. We've also got the Admiral, who might be a man. We might be a woman. We're not sure yet. Commentator Hunter Avlone is another person who agrees with at least some of that. He's here to rebuttal another video about the importance of diversity in the military. Interesting stuff. Take a look.
Having women in the military is a massive benefit for the military. Diversity in the military is a massive benefit for the military. For people like me who actually give a shit about having a strong military and aren't as concerned about pushing some kind of insane fascistic agenda, I can recognize that having diversity in the military provides more insights. It provides more abilities for people to connect with certain civilians. So, for example, having women in your military can help with women talking to women civilians.
Andrew, thanks for having me on today.
No, thank you for coming on. As I'm sure you're aware, it's not easy to get people who disagree to come on to shows like this, so we definitely appreciate that. Now, the first thing I want to ask you is, first off, I'll start by saying I'm not anti-diversity in any means. I just don't know how diversity in and of itself is a benefit and something to strive for in terms of the military. And we can talk about other things as well if you want, but this is basically what we talked about. Explain what you mean. What do you mean by just diversity? Is it gender, sexuality, race, all kinds? Can you please explain?
Yeah, I think that diversity, really diverse identities at the end of the day, whether it is race, gender, sexuality, all of that kind of plays a very significant role in benefiting the military. Specifically in the context of innovation. So when you have a diverse group of people, you have a diverse group of backgrounds, essentially, you have more ideas to pull from, and the innovation is crucial for the military's development and success largely. In fact, the military even has what's called the Army Ideas for Innovation program, where people who have ideas can come to this office and submit their ideas. And basically by having diverse people, whether they're gay or women or black or whatever, having a diverse group of people contributes massively to innovation and thriving for the military, essentially.
Is there any example you can think of where that has been used to make some sort of new technology, new way of fighting, or anything like that?
Yeah, so there's actually several different inventions that we use today, both in the military and in our day-to-day life, that were invented by minorities or were a result of diversity. So, for example, Heidi Lamar, she invented what was called the frequency hopping communication system. And what that was used at the time for World War II. But now that invention is actually what fuels Wi-Fi, GPS, and Bluetooth. So we all benefit from that technology, for example.
But how is that due specifically to their race or gender or some sort of diversity outreach?
It's not like because she's a woman, that's why she came up with the idea. It's rather that the more diversity you have, the more backgrounds you have, you avoid groupthink and you're more likely to achieve higher levels of innovation. I can give you some examples of like private companies that when they're focused on innovation, increases in racial diversity were related to enhanced financial performance. So the more diverse groups of people you have, the less groupthink you have, and the better outcomes essentially you get as well.
So are you in favor of hiring, let's say, having a quota for, let's say, women in the military, or in Canada we have for Native Canadians in the military? Are you in favor of quotas like that, or do you think it comes naturally?
Yeah, I'm not so sure I'm in favor of like a quota, like you must have this amount of women. I think that tends to be pretty lame, and then you kind of leave out a lot of talent because I don't like the idea of hiring someone purely because they are a woman, but rather like what started this whole thing really was John Doyle was kind of shitting on this idea of diversity in the military, and then John Miller called me a retard for saying that diversity was a strength.
Who's John Miller? I don't know who that is.
He's a Blaze TV host.
Okay.
And yeah, he called me a retard, and I think that's how we got in contact to begin with, is because I was posting about it. I don't remember exactly, but I'm not really in favor of like a strict quota, but I'm also strongly against this idea that there must only be like strong men in the military, because the military is made up of a lot more than just fighting.
This is true, but I'm still not able to identify how like having this diversity as a point to, like, let's just say you've got 100 white guys or 100 black guys. I don't understand how having an extra person of either category in a platoon makes them better fighters.
Well, you got to remember that only 10% of the military will ever even see fighting. There's a lot more to the military than just fighting. So when I'm advocating for diversity in the military, I don't necessarily mean that's diversity in the actual fighting aspect. Obviously, women on average are weaker than men. So having more strong men on the front lines will probably make more sense. But again, if we're talking about the behind the scenes shit, you know, the analysis that's necessary, the different ideas that come up, the technology that's developed, this all benefits from diversity. I can give you an example. So here was a study where they put together 3-person groups, some consisting of all white members, other with 2 whites and 1 non-white member, and they had them perform a murder mystery exercise. And to find out who committed the murder, the group members would have to share all the information they collectively possessed during the discussion. And the groups with racial diversity significantly outperformed the groups with no racial diversity. Being with similar others leads us to think we all hold the same information and share the same perspective. This perspective, which stopped the all-white group from effectively processing the information, is what hinders creativity and innovation.
But what information was that somebody from a different race had that white people didn't have?
It's not that cut and dry. It's more so that when you have people of different backgrounds, different experiences, they all bring something different to the table. And more groupthink leads to lower rates of innovation. So if you have people that all look the same, even if it's not intentionally, I'm not saying they're all like these evil racists or something, but it's just that when people look the same as you, you tend to kind of think of them as holding the same ideas as you as well. And that just leads to groupthink. It's not beneficial for the military. It's not beneficial for innovation.
I think you're reading the conclusion of some sort of study without really being able to give the examples of what's in it. But I was in the military. I don't recall any time. A couple of my best friends in the Army were African guys. There wasn't ever a time where any of us looked around and said, we need more diversity. This is going to help us. And in fact, when you've got people in an armed forces, when you come together from vastly different places, from the west coast of the country to the center to the east, there aren't these, racial thought lines that it seems like you're pointing towards. Like, I got friends from Alberta who live in the country, and they think completely different from the guys who live on the east coast and the Maritimes here in Canada.
And that's partially diversity, though. There's also diversity of thought. But people of different identities bring different ideas as well. They have different experiences. They contribute differently, just like having diversity of thought from somebody from Florida working together with somebody from California might have different ideas. It's not just this like strict identity as if like you are gay, so therefore you have a better idea kind of thing. But rather, when you put people together of all different backgrounds, of all different experiences and different identities, you just get higher rates of innovation. This has been demonstrated time and time again. I can give you another study if you want. The one that I just read you, I do understand it was a murder mystery. And the reason that that's important, as cheesy as it sounds, is because that was able to find not a correlation, but more of a causal link between diversity contributing to higher rates of innovation.
But what was the thing that they found that was different from race to race?
I don't know exactly what the difference was that they found in these things. I can send you the whole study if you want, but I don't think that's important. What's
But you haven't,
important
like,
is
you're saying this thing, but you haven't even, it sounds like you haven't read it, though.
I have read it.
Then,
I
but you
just
don't
don't have
know
all
the
the
difference.
information. Well, I don't have all the information stuck here right here on my notes, but I think that this is kind of weak if you're going to start accusing me of not reading the full entire study when I have, first of all. Second of all, that's not the relevant part. What's relevant is that when there is more diversity, they perform better. I can give you another one too. By correlating diversity in leadership with market outcomes, as reported by respondents, they learned that companies with more diversity out-innovate and outperform others. Employees at these companies are 45% likelier to report that their firm's market share grew over the previous year, and 70% likelier to report that the firm captured a new market. So the fact that they're capturing a new market is, again, evidence that they are innovating at faster rates.
Well, yeah, if we're talking about marketing and business, I would never say that there doesn't need to be, different viewpoints and say we're marketing towards a different demographic here. I think it makes perfect sense. But what we were talking about was stuff in the military and how just placing diversity and putting in not necessarily a strong, focus on diversity, but in and of itself, I don't think it matters at all when your goal here is to fight and your goal here is to
The goal isn't to
defeat.
fight.
The goal of the
is not to
military is
fight.
not to fight. Okay, what is it?
The goal of the military is really ultimately to keep our country safe. But again, there's only 10% of our military that will ever even see fighting. This is oftentimes a straw man that a lot of people build up, which is like, oh, do you really think a weak, frail woman is going to do good on the battlefield? No, that's not all the military is, though. There's way more to the military than just fighting.
I'm aware. I was in the military, but
You don't sound like you're aware because
But-
you're making the argument that it's all fighting.
I mean, those people support the people that are fighting. The supply chain and the vehicle technicians, these are all people who are supporting the people fighting. It never ever comes up where somebody says, we need more diversity. Oh, if only we had people from this place or who thought this way, we would have been better off. That sort of stuff never comes up. And it comes to my broader point is, when you make these videos and you're shitting on people and you pull up I went through your Twitter a little bit yesterday, and it's mainly reacting to people that you don't like and saying how stupid they are. And you take these broader concepts and take them at face value. Like in one point in that video, you read about you read something off the American Immigration Council as if their goal is not to advance the public image of diversity in the military. You talked about martial law. There's one point where you're taking apart what John says about people having mental illnesses in the military, and you Google a part that says you don't have to be like really mentally competent to apply for the military, and then it says educational achievement, cognitive testing, and cursory psychiatric evaluation. And then you take that and you're just like, well, that settles it. So I feel like
No, it's that if you say that there are a bunch of mentally ill people in the military, that doesn't really add up if they need to pass a cognition test in order to even begin serving in the military.
See, I don't
That's the point I was making.
See, you
And-
don't know
hold on,
what
wait,
the
I
test
get yours.
is. Okay, go ahead.
That's not true. You keep on bringing up your own personal experience with this. I'm not saying that all the soldiers are hanging out saying, man, where's another black person? It's that, again, the military is made up of a large group of people. It's not just fighting. It is a large group of people that contribute to different facets of the military. And when you have diversity, again, you have more innovation. And honestly, there are even studies showing that when you exclude people, when you are obsessed with this idea of cohesion on the basis of race or sexual orientation or gender identity, you actually weaken the military. You weaken the morale of the military, and you basically undermine the perception that people have of the military as well, because now the military no longer resembles the demographic of the country. This has been demonstrated. I could send you a peer-reviewed study that studied the UK military, for example, and found just this.
But
So
when
again, I'm not saying you need to have quotas to force diversity in everything. I'm saying that the argument that I was responding to as far as John Doyle and John Miller was that they were saying diversity is not a strength of the military, and I'm saying it is.
Again, you say I'm saying from my personal experience. It's not just my personal experience, it's how it is. Like, for example, if I was to say there was a fitness test and obese people didn't make it, that's just not my personal experience. That's how it is, and that's how the military operates. So it's not just me talking from my experience of what I saw, day to day between and had conversations between people. It's how it actually is. And I feel like you take these surface level arguments and you say, oh, that's how it must be. I've Googled this definition, and I've Googled what mental acuity tests they do, and they do this cognitive evaluation, and therefore there can be no sign of people with poor mental health in the military.
You're saying, well, I was in the military and this was my experience, so
no,
that's
I just
how it
told
is.
you that's not. No, it's not just my experience. It is how it is, though. Like if I
But
say,
how do you know that? You're taking it at face value. You're gauging from your own experience.
so I
and
never
saying
talked to
that this is-
anybody. I never knew anything about what was going on while I was
No,
there.
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that you can't accuse me of just kind of looking at things at face value when that's actually what you're doing. You're gauging from your own experience and the fact that you talk to some people here and there and then saying, well, that's just how it is. That's not just how it is.
So from
There's a
your
lot more to the
Googling, you have a
military.
better understanding of what the military is than people who actually have
I don't
been
have
in
a
it.
better understanding of what it's like to be in the military, but I absolutely have a better understanding in regards to the fact that diversity benefits the military. Yes.
Okay. I don't know if we're going to get anywhere with that. I did want to bring in another guest, Olivia. You want to go ahead and put them both on?
Well, wait, who are you ambushing me with? Because we're not even done with our discussion yet. Andrew. Hey, John, what's up?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are
John
tonight's
Doyle.
Entertainment, here to discuss diversity, here to discuss the military.
Nice.
Hunter, how are we doing?
Finally.
How are we
I'm doing good. Why we took so long to get this set up. I'm happy to see you, John. How you doing, man?
It is true. I'm doing pretty well. I don't want to stand on ceremony with this sort of performative fraternity, Hunter. You had some very abrasive things to say about me in your video, which admittedly I didn't watch. Admittedly, I also didn't rewatch my video in preparation for this because, of course, I wanted to give you the biggest advantage possible. So you're going to have to refresh me a little bit on your critiques as we go along here. But yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, the main critique that I had was just you seem to be very much against this idea of diversity in the military.
Real.
And that's just not true. Like, I thought that was quite delusional, to be honest, because virtually every single study we have, whether it's of a private business or of the military directly, we can see that diversity contributes to a significant amount of innovation.
Right. So for those watching, people of Hunter's kin like to do this thing with studies where they basically use them like Pokemon cards. So Hunter is going to take his studies and he's going to say, look at this study, it says this thing, blam! And it's like his argument is the title of the study. He doesn't believe that people, like as we saw with what Andrew was saying, can experience things, can infer data, can use their inductive reasoning, things like that. So that's why, it's always studies and data. So people like Hunter also, it's not a coincidence that they're so obsessed with things like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? Like they conceptualize
I never even
diversity.
watched Marvel.
Like,
hold on,
no,
wait,
not you,
wait,
not
wait,
you.
no. Is this actually your argument right now? Is the idea of shitting on data and factual information because you think that feelings outweigh facts? Is that it?
No.
I never said.
No. If you would listen to my argument, I know this isn't one of your reaction streams where you're going to pause what I'm saying and have your little.
Well, this isn't one of your videos where you can just make up a bunch of lies about what I think.
Let's just go one
let
at
me
a
just
time.
finish my opening monologue here. My point was going to be that people of Hunter's coalition, maybe not him necessarily, since we want to get specific here, they can only conceptualize diversity like a team of superheroes, right? Or like the what was that Pixar movie, Inside Out, where you've got like this guy with this strength, and then this guy is really good at this thing, and they all come together, and then they beat the bad guy. That's not actually how it works. And what it comes down to basically in brass text is that anything the military is doing besides focusing on destroying enemies and their resources and securing our borders is by definition operating at a less efficient way than it should be. And so the whole idea behind diverse identities, as Hunter articulated, is this idea that like, oh, well, if you've got the white guy, he's going to have this way of looking at it. If you've got the black guy, he's going to have this way of looking at it. And when they all come together, they can sort of figure out the best way possible because you have all these different perspectives.
I know. See, this was the problem. I wanted to set up a debate between you guys. Hunter refused, and then he.
I did not refuse.
You did.
I said that I wanted Hold on,
No,
wait.
no, you said I'll
Stop.
I'll never
I don't care
debate
if I gotta
him.
go get
I'll
both
never.
of you guys,
You
but
said
I
I'll
will say
never.
I said that I wanted a non-biased moderator.
Yeah, and
it's
have I
already
said
proving
no?
it.
How have I said
And it's
anything? I haven't
already
said
proving
anything.
that it
I
should
haven't
have
said
been that
anything.
way.
No.
If I could just comment on the structure of the debate, typically the way these actual debates, as opposed to internet blood sports go, is one side will speak for 5-10 minutes, the other side will speak for 5-10 minutes. There's questions, etc. That's kind of the impression under which I was operating. So I'd like to be able to speak for a few minutes uninterrupted.
I just wanted to
well,
interject with the fact that I haven't said anything, and he's saying there's a debate on a moderator on your side, and this is why he refused to come on. But I'm perfectly able to sit here, as I've shown, and not say anything and let you guys talk. So let's go back to
You're
both
not
of
letting
them.
me talk right now.
Because you just made a claim that I'm.
Minutes.
Can I
Okay, go ahead, John.
respond to anything that John said, or is he
You-
literally?
Yeah, you
will
will
get the
have
chance.
ample
Yes.
time.
Yes,
You just
you
got to
will.
be patient.
Wait,
Delayed
wait.
gratification.
Are we going to do
It's
a
tough for Hunter.
5-minute thing? Because I'm not doing that.
That'd be
We're
great.
having a
Can you speak
discussion
for
back
5
and
minutes
forth.
extemporaneously? Are you afraid of that?
No, it's not that I'm afraid of it. It's that a real debate is you say something, then I ask a question, then we kind of build upon that and have more of a conversation, not just
That's
you get to
not
rant at your
accurate.
camera for
I
5
didn't
minutes.
even go to college, Hunter. I know the collegiate level debate. There's the first affirmative, there's the first rebuttal. I mean, it goes in blocks. So I'm going to continue with what I was
This isn't
trying
a
to say
formal
here.
debate.
Well, it is. I would like to think that we can operate at that level. I have a great amount of respect for you,
I
believe it or
can't
not.
believe that your version of a debate, you're so
gotta
scared to
stop.
actually just talk back and forth. Are you afraid of my
You're the
soy
one not
face?
letting me talk. My brother in Christ. You got to stop. I'm going to just continue.
My brother in
Anyway,
Christ, you
the
won't
idea,
shut the fuck up.
The idea, you're so tough, dude. Like, I don't understand
I
this whole
never
tough
agreed to
thing.
this. You're literally just ambushing me and then saying, "Oh, it's a formal debate now, so you have to be
It
quiet
is.
for 5 minutes."
It is. Real.
Let's actually
Yeah.
talk about it.
Real.
Why do you think that diversity does not benefit the military? What's your evidence of this?
See, I was going to continue. Anyways, the idea that diversity does inherently benefit the military, like in that video in particular, I think I was mainly talking about diversity in terms of sex and in terms of sexuality. So, like, literally, if you're going to argue that diversity in terms of sexuality benefits the military, what you're saying is that people whose identities center around anal sex and genital mutilation have something to offer to the military. Like, they could read something written by von Clausewitz or something written by Sun Tzu, and they could actually amend that text and have a better idea of how to conquer enemies and defend borders than these people. And this kind of gets into the other thing. Well, even if not in terms of strategic innovation, in terms of technological innovation, they have something to offer there, because he mentioned as well, on the battlefield, only 10% of people are going to see combat, right? Now, in my opinion, that's more of an argument against the fact that the military has basically become a jobs program, less against the fact that, it's not actually going to have a lot of people on the battlefield. But you've got the innovation, at least, if not the combat aspect. The thing with that, though, is if you say you're going to have 1 million people that can be in the military, just to use that number, if you're going to just stock it with people, for diversity's sake, you're going to want to stock it with the most people who are the most likely to innovate. Because obviously, I'm less innovative than the woman that he mentioned who created that technology. But on average, I think that's what's important to look at. And if you look at virtually 95%, which is an actual figure, 95% of the innovation, both scientific and technological, that took place on this planet between, I think, 800 BC and 1950 AD was done by European men. I don't know why that is, but that just happens to be the case.
The fact of the matter
No,
is
it is.
that at
Excuse
the
me.
end.
That
Hold
just
on, wait.
happens
Are
to
you
be the
serious
case.
right
So
now? You're
my
actually
point
just
is-
going to do. I'm going to hang up and leave, okay? If you don't let me actually talk and respond to some of this
I'm
bullshit.
almost done. I promise. I promise.
Why
I'm
are you
almost
just
done.
talking? You think this is one of your videos right now?
Yeah,
You've
right.
made like
I'm trying to
50 claims.
create
I'm not
an
going to be able to
argument.
respond to
I'm trying
all of
to
them.
create-
You're
If you would,
trying
if you
to
would take
gish
notes and
gallop me,
listen.
John.
I'm
You're
not. I
trying to
promise
gish
you I'm
gallop me.
not.
Yeah. You're so mad
promise
right
you
now
I'm not.
because you don't like the idea of having a conversation. You're used to
literally
just sitting
helping
down
me
and saying,
talk exactly
heck off,
right.
commie, LOLOL.
Real.
You're breaking
Real.
from your script. I know. You're really scared
Real.
right now.
You're
so
the one
again,
who's
when
afraid
you
to talk
say,
for 5 minutes. You can't do it
I'm
without
not
your
afraid to
little
talk for
reaction.
5 minutes. I'm actually
Dave.
interested in talking to you,
Okay.
not just
Then let me
talking
just
that
get a
you talk
couple
and I
more
talk.
little bullet points out here. So this
How many
idea
bullet
again
points are you
about
going
the
to get out
groups
till
that
I get to
innovate.
actually respond to?
Well, this is how debates work, dude. Like, I don't
This
know
is
what you're-
not how a debate works.
Anyways,
This is not how a debate works, my dude.
so
why
the
don't we
idea that,
actually
like, oh,
talk?
we have this one anecdote. We have this one anecdote of this woman who invented this particular piece of technology, this minority who invented this particular piece of technology. In a vacuum, if you were to keep pumping the military with, say, European men, which is traditionally the founding stock of our military, eventually they would have come up with that technology. That's just a fact. Eventually they would have, because we can infer that from the fact that they've invented like virtually everything else. So I guess
Do you
then
think that has
you have
anything
really,
to do with the fact that oftentimes like white people were dominating the country. So like, for example, you could say like,
why was
hey,
that?
black
Because we're good
people
at
didn't.
innovating stuff.
Well, no. You could say like, hey, how come black people didn't really present any good inventions during the time that they were enslaved or during the time that Jim Crow was in place? Like, I don't think it's fair for you to just say, well, look, Europeans did this, and that's just because they're European, LOL. That's not how this works. What it is that oftentimes Europeans held more power and they were in a privileged position where they were able to innovate at faster rates. But it doesn't mean that that is intrinsic to the fact that they are, in fact, European. And
Well, then,
again, I'm
okay,
not.
I have a question then
But
about
you keep trying to call what I'm saying like an anecdote. That's an example of some things that's some of the things that women have contributed or gay people have contributed. Sure, but it's not just that. Again, it's that by having diversity, you avoid this idea of groupthink. You break away from groupthink, and you are able to innovate faster.
Why is good.
But
Okay, so
no,
we're
it's
going to go
not. That
point by
literally weakens
let's go
the
point by
military.
point. No, it doesn't. Let's go point by point then. I want to talk about the Europe versus Africa thing. Colonization,
No,
right?
we're not going to talk. This has nothing to do with the actual military
does.
thing. I know that you. No. I know you
Explain
got
to
to get
me-
back to your script. I understand that you have to get back to your script. Okay, but hold on. We're actually talking now.
Nobody watching
I'm
this
sorry.
actually thinks that your brain's operating at a higher level. I mean, I'm thinking faster.
I
Than you.
haven't been
Literally
able to say
cannot
a
keep
word,
up
my
with what
dude.
I'm saying.
You've literally been just
Let's go-
talking
let's go
nonstop,
point by
and the
point.
non-biased mod isn't even helping at all. So this
Oh,
is
I'm
exactly
sorry,
why,
Hunter.
by
I
the
thought
way.
when I spoke earlier, I was being too biased. Okay, John, let's give Hunter a few minutes to say what he wants to say.
Okay.
I didn't want to appear too biased because
So let it be known that I said that I was more than happy to debate John Doyle.
you
And,
did not. No, you said I will
Shut,
never.
shut up, Andrew.
You said
so I
you
said
shut
that
up.
I
This
was
is
more
my
than
show.
happy. I'm going to go ahead and mute. So I
that's
said that I
great.
was more than happy to debate John Doyle, for
He
example,
didn't.
on
No.
Modern Day Debate.
Okay, on
And,
that one,
well,
he
no,
said
I
I'll
said Modern
never.
Day Debate,
I thought you were
and
muting me.
On Modern Day Debate, they reached out multiple times. John Doyle never responded, and I directly said, "I'm not so sure I want to debate on your platform, Andrew."
You
because
said
I
I'll
feel
never
like you're gonna
debate
be
John
pretty-
on my show, and I haven't said
And I
anything.
said because you were
So-
going to be biased, and
How
you've
am I
now let
biased?
John go on because you've let John ramble on for the
And
last
when
10 minutes
and as soon as you
haven't let me
complained,
get a
and
single
as soon
word
as you
in.
complained, I said you can have the floor now, and John just agreed. So instead of complaining further, just say what you want to say.
Okay. So again, my claim is not that we need to impose diversity on the military. My claim is that by letting more people into the military of all different diverse backgrounds, you are benefiting innovation. And John, I know that you say like, that's not true, blah, 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 wah, wah. But you need to tell me then, how come we have found not one, not two, but multiple different studies that have all shown that when there is more diversity, the companies innovate at faster rates? Can you please answer why that is the case?
Yeah, I do want to address the one study that you cited in particular, the murder mystery study, which you said was proof that diversity is good. On the surface, it's like murder mystery being equivalent to warfare. Okay. But you have to look at the difference between the two. I mean, you have something like a murder mystery, right? That's like a social deduction scenario. You have a finite pool from which to draw, and then maybe you can find who did it, so to speak, versus like
diversity
literal
can help
open
that.
modern warfare. Right. So what I'm familiar with in
It's
terms
not
of the
all- it's-
literature,
It's not all
like,
modern
need-
warfare.
I know you have low impulse control, but you just have to stop, okay? You want to go back and forth, and we have to go back and forth. So in terms of the literature that I think alludes to some of this, like corporate diversity being good, military diversity being good, oftentimes what they find is exactly that perspective thing that you're talking about, where if you have a more diverse group of people, then they're better able to assess situations critically. That's the problem. Because all of the literature that's supporting that claim, you have to be careful with what that is implicating, because they're not saying that they're actually better at producing the correct outcomes for situations. Literally what they are saying is they are better at critical thinking. Why is that? That is because when you have more people from different backgrounds, they are more likely to disagree on things, which they define positively as critical thinking. I would disagree with that because, again, I want to get back to the Europe versus Africa thing, because you said that the reason Africa didn't have a competent military or innovation, so to speak, was because of European
I
oppression.
didn't say Africa.
Well,
No, that's not what I said. I was just
Well,
making a
we
broad
talked
point
about-
the European.
okay.
But hold
Okay.
on, what you just
Well,
said as far as
really,
the,
I just
well,
have
hold on,
one
wait, I
question,
just
and
want
then
to
I'll
respond
shut
to
up.
what you
I
said really
promise.
quickly, because you
All right.
didn't answer my question either. But first of all, when you have people, you just admitted it, that when you have people, you have a lot of different ideas. You have a finite pool of information to pull from. And that is a benefit of diversity. Second of all, the study that I just referenced to you was not actually the murder mystery one. I was bringing up a study which looked at different banks, and they found that innovation-focused banks increased, or innovation increased in racial diversity, that was clearly related to an enhanced financial performance. So when you say they're not looking at the outcome, they are looking at the outcomes. The outcomes are specifically benefiting by having more diversity. And this isn't just in private firms where this has been discovered. Even the military itself has found that when women are involved in complex problem solving, they solve problems at faster rates than groups that are just made up of men, for example. So what's wrong with this? Why don't we want our military to be strong and efficient?
I would be curious to see the sample size from that one pertaining to women, because men are more rational than women, and so
This is a
I would
lie.
imagine it's not a lie.
That's a lie. Yeah, it is.
It's absolutely not a lie.
No, it's a
And
lie.
there's even studies supporting that too.
No, there isn't.
But anyway,
There's studies reporting the complete opposite, but I know that you kind of have to just make up stuff. But okay, go ahead. What were you saying?
well, anyways. So it's like if you take a sample size of high IQ women and compare them to average IQ men, they're going to be better at solving those problems. But if I took 100 women off the street and 100 men off the street, I mean, you would be delusional to suggest that the women would be better at solving the problems than the men would. I mean, this is just a fact.
No,
And so,
not at all.
in terms of the
It's not
social deduction, it is true, dude. Like I
It's
don't
not
know
true.
if you're lying. I don't know like what kind of bubble you live in to actually believe this. It reminds me of the Trump tweet. Like, is this even possible to believe? This
You
idea.
haven't provided any evidence. You're just saying, like, obviously this is the case. I have evidence after evidence after evidence that shows that the Marine Corps, for example, found that including women resulted in just as good, if not better, cognitive performance with these challenging problems. I have information showing that when women are involved in high firm companies, they perform better the more diversity is implemented in those companies. This is a clear evidence that women are not less rational than men. You're going to have some women that are less rational than men. You're also going to have some men that are less rational than women. They have done studies where they presented men and women with complex moral problems, and at the end of the day, men and women were just as rational. This is just a lie that you're saying right now.
No, it's not. There's a really good book that I don't think you'll read, but if anyone's interested, it's called The Rationality Quotient, and it's, how to quantify actually thinking rationally. And they found, like, I think a 0.67 or 0.68 advantage in terms of rational thinking for men. So again, I don't even think this is worth addressing. But again, what you're arguing, I'm frankly much less concerned about like all of the studies and things like that. I'm talking about like what we know about world history. What you are arguing is that all of the conquests of, for example, the Roman Empire would have been better if you would have had more women involved or more gay people involved or things like that. And this is why I don't know why you are so like afraid of this comparison, but when you're talking about like, Africa was at a disadvantage versus Europe, well, why then was Europe able to come in and colonize Africa? If we were really at a level playing field, they have more natural resources than Europe. Why weren't they able to man the defenses? I understand that, but listen to what I'm saying. I'm saying that innovation is more likely to come from European men, as evidenced by literally 95% of all of it. You're saying no. I'm saying, okay, well, if that's not the case, why was Africa not able to defend itself from European colonization?
These are completely unrelated. The European colonization had everything to do with advanced levels of technology, even
Where did
different
that come
climates.
from?
Hold on. Even different climates had an effect there. This idea of, well, Africa couldn't defend itself, therefore minorities are not good for innovation is irrelevant. This is one of the weakest arguments I've ever heard. We need to combine and look at how diversity interacts with the military and in actual companies, because that's how the military is. You keep saying, well, what about the fighting
I
field?
agree with that.
and
The
other thing?
military is a company. Get that.
Well, no. It's not just the company, but it's a group where there is a large amount of people that are all working towards a common goal. And if you actually want to talk about world history, I mean, you can look at historical examples. Since the 1800s, for example, armies with high rates of inequality have done poorly, according to all kinds of measures. One statistical analysis focused on armies with high rates of inequality, and that they found that increased the odds by 50% that an army will suffer more casualties than it inflicts on the other side. So that's some world history for you right there. When you are discriminatory or when you don't properly include minorities into your group, you lack positive outcomes. You weaken the military. You weaken the morale. And again, I don't know why you keep going back to this Africa thing. At the end of the day, we have multiple different studies that have shown that when women and Black people and minorities are included in these firms, they do better. You're just denying this. You're just denying it right now.
Okay, I have another question. Help me understand. If we know that if you have a group of like, say 50 bland vanilla white men and you throw in the Black people and women, you're saying that that'll help that company do better, that military operation do better, then why then, in the places in the world where we see the most black people or the most any sort of minority group, why then are they not doing as well as where we see the most groups of like white male-dominated spheres? If that's the
Sure,
case.
I can answer that. Yeah, the answer to that is not that, oh, just because they're black, they somehow have a better idea, lol. What you're doing is stripping this of all nuance, and you're looking at this in one of the most delusionally reductionist ways imaginable. What it is not only diversity, it's how you properly implement that diversity. Obviously, just having a large group of black people is not going to necessarily lead to any better or worse outcome than having a large group of uneducated white people or something. That's not the key here. The key is that when you have a business or a company or something like the military, and they all have a common goal, implementing diversity in the proper way, mind you, leads to more innovation because you're pulling from a larger pool of information. There is more experience behind that. And then, like I've already demonstrated, that leads to higher rates of innovation. This benefits the military immensely. Like, I want to see the military get stronger. I want our country to be kept safe. And that's what the military does. And so it only makes sense to have a larger pool to gauge information from. That was your argument at the beginning of this.
Right. So, again, it's like even in recent history, our military hasn't been able to do really anything quite effectively. I mean, we got embarrassed in Afghanistan. We were embarrassed in all of our campaigns in the Middle East. And now it's like I really kind of want you to just think about like what you're saying to me, which is that, you know, if we are to increase, like, what experience do you think, if you just had to guess, maybe there's not a study, if you just had to guess, what experience do you think the average black guy has in terms of dealing with high-level military operations, small unit tactics, that the average white guy just, like, doesn't have? Like, what is that experience that you think he could really bring to the table there?
I don't think that anybody, white, black, gay, straight, women, whatever, have like some intrinsic understanding of the military. They would be.
Well, then why would you need them for military diversity to make it better? That's the essence of your argument.
No, I think that you're literally thinking that my argument is like, just take a random woman off the street and plop her in the military, therefore military gets better.
According to your argument, that would increase innovation.
No,
even if only,
my argument
slightly.
is that,
yes.
My argument is that when you train, obviously to get somebody in the military, they're going to have to train to be in the military. Obviously, I'm not talking about just
86% of women fail, but yeah.
I'm not talking about just grabbing random people and then saying, oh, look, they're black, they must have better ideas. It's that, again, I've said this now 5 times, when you take a large group of people of different identities and they're all focused on a common goal, after all going through the same training, mind you, to get to where they are in the military, or going through the same process to be hired in a hypothetical firm, then you will see higher rates of innovation. I'm not saying that some black person just has an intrinsic understanding of the military, but guess what? Neither do any white guys, okay? They all go through a proper training, and then once they do, when they're all put in a group where they have to have a common outcome or a common goal, we see the diversity and the different experiences and different backgrounds lead to less groupthink and more innovation. And also, one more thing I really want to quickly address. You said, like, oh, we haven't really seen our military do anything recently, yada, yada, yada. I mean, you might be right. I don't know. You might be wrong. But at the end of the day, if you want to look at all of the different innovation that was contributed to our military during, say, World War II, for example, there was a multitude of benefits that were brought to our military from minority groups, whether they were black, women, or gay. So I don't think that you can necessarily just say that they must not have an understanding or they must have the understanding.
What were some of those? I mean, you say
goal.
Multitudes. There's so many examples. Give me one from World War II.
Sure. So Alan Turing, he was a crypto-analyst for the British government during World War II. He was also a gay man. His code-breaking skills played a pivotal role in intercepting coded German messages. I can give you another one. The multiplex telegram was used in World War II, was invented by a black man named Granville T. Woods. He also invented the first prototype of the gas mask. If you want another one, Heidi Lamar, she's a woman. She invented the frequency hopping communication system, which now gives us Wi-Fi, GPS, and Bluetooth. These are all things that have benefited the military, that were brought to the military from diversity. So you need to tell me, why are you in favor of weakening the military just because you don't want there to be diversity? Can you explain that one?
I'm not even anti-diversity. I I just fail to see the logic behind thinking that the less cohesive you make a group, the more likely it is to be able to successfully fulfill a task which would require it to be cohesive.
Thanks for watching another episode of Andrew Says. To get the full version of the show with bonus segments, go to rebelnewsplus.com and sign up now.